Good morning, Idaho. Hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome to the Local Yokel Idaho podcast, where we talk about what is going on in the wonderful state of Idaho. This week, I'll be talking about another law that the representatives of Idaho have passed, but the courts are blocking. This one is about transgenders in sports. Then we'll talk about potatoes and a wildlife overpass, plus so much more. Hey, glad to have you here today. Please join me for the morning banter where I chat with you briefly before we get into it. But if you're short on time and prefer to skip the banter, I totally understand. Use the timestamp that is down in the descriptions to jump straight over to the news stories. Now that everyone has moved on, that's on a busy schedule, which I will admit, no shame on them. I'm very guilty of that as well. My life is usually very busy trying to record this and then get this done and then go to different meetings and events and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. Anywho, hope you all had a wonderful day/week, depending on when you're listening to this. I know the weather this last couple of weeks has been interesting. Last week, it was super hot and sweltering. I swear, it felt like the South. I mean, I know if you follow Twitter, I kind of made a joke about that, but I live in Idaho. I don't live in the South. I don't want it to be humid as all get out. I live here for a reason, that it is dry heat, but it seems like this summer, Idaho has been like, no, I'm actually going to add humidity in there this time, and you're going to have a factor of like 30 to 50% humidity. I mean, I will admit, I haven't gone, and I'm being very lazy, and just checked my humidity gauge, because we have a little weather station here at the house, but it has felt way more muggy than I previously remember, especially the last couple years. Granted, this year has been more of a rainy year than it has been the past. I mean, we've had more precipitation. I can do English, don't worry. I have a podcast. I can do English. I can read and different things. It's all fine. But it's just felt like so much more rain and stuff. I know that it's been shown in kind of the reservoirs. This is the first year I know in many that we've had enough rain and the reservoirs have been full and happy. But yeah, it's just frustrating with the amount of humidity. I mean, I had a dance on Thursday I was at, and it was great. The dance was wonderful. This week, we had a ton of dancers. They were all really skilled. We almost had an equal boy-to-girl ratio, which if any of you guys have done dances before, usually that never happens. Usually you have like more girls than you have guys, and so gals have to match up for couples and things. But anywho, I digress. It was so humid, and then trying to dance, which was enjoyable, and then you threw the heat in, and I was melting. Thankfully, I wore a short sleeve for that event, and it all worked out. But all that whining aside, this next week, I'm looking at the weather report, and I'm sitting here right now, and we've got a little bit of rain that's coming down. It's really nice. It's really nice to have the rain and cooling things down. I'm really enjoying it, kind of a refresher. I know when I go into work this next week, or when you're listening to this week, it's going to be so much nicer because all we have is a swamp cooler to cool the place where I work at. And having that added rainfall and the cloud cover is going to make it so much nicer when I'm at work this next week. I don't know about any of you guys that do outdoor work or different things. I have no doubt if you're doing construction work, I'm guessing you guys don't like the rain, because then, the mud and everything that then comes from that and the work site and stuff, and you'll get more dirty. Maybe. I'm assuming roofers are going to hate that because, things aren't going to stay dry, and then, you're going to have to be careful of slipping and different things. But all in all, I'm glad to have some rain. I'm glad to have it cool down. It is a little odd to have rain happening while the Boise / Western Idaho Fair is going on. Usually that's like slam dunk right in the hottest time of the entire year and kind of marks the end of the heat. But I guess we're kind of flipping that up a little bit. It's just an interesting dynamic, to say the least. With that said, I do have to be honest with you guys. All week, I was thinking of things to share on the morning banter as I was writing the script for different stories and news articles. I'm like, I need to talk about that, and that would be fun to talk about. And that's an interesting idea to share, and whatever else, and blah 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 blah. But now that I've sat down to record the morning banter, and when I was writing even the script for it and everything, it's not fully scripted. I have little bits of points and stuff and notes, so I don't forget things I want to say. It's not quite as scripted as some of the other parts of the podcast. I can't think of anything. I'm blanking all of it, which is frustrating as all get out because I knew I had some cool stuff to talk about and chat with you with, but my brain is just nice and blank, which it's nice, on a relaxing level that, hey, cool, my brain can actually, there's not much up there and it's really nice. But kind of sucks on the side of trying to record and talk about stuff with you guys. So maybe it'll come with me next week. It just means the morning banner is going to be a little bit shorter today because I don't have a lot in my brain. I think this next week should be reasonably busy. I think there's the Republican youth event at the fair Monday. And then there's a couple different things happening on throughout the week. So I'll be decently busy going to those and different things. I should have more to talk about next week. I usually have more to talk about, but I think it's just been a long week and the heat has gotten to me. We'll put it that way. In any case, that's all I have to say for the morning banter. We'll move into the news and the stories here for this next week. Starting off the news here with our first story, we'll get the big one, the controversial one out of the way here. Federal court blocks Idaho's transgender sports law. This comes by KTVB7 by Laura Guido. Hopefully I got that last name right. So this week we have another Idaho law related to transgenderism that has been blocked. This week the Federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a block on a 2020 Idaho law that would bar transgenders from participating in female student teams. The law had been given a preliminary injunction from being enforced back in 2020. It is currently being challenged by two athletes, one from Boise State University and one from Boise High School. They are being represented by the ACLU of Idaho and Legal Voice. The court found that the law was likely violating the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The court also found that the law is unnecessary and discriminatory. The law requires transgenders to undergo a medical examination to verify their biological sex. The court found that this requirement is, quote, unquestionably invasive, end quote, and would traumatize young girls and women. With that said, the law is still being challenged in court, but the appeals court decision is a setback for those fighting against transgenderism in schools and higher learning. Now, I might sound like a bit of a broken record because we've talked about similar stuff like this on the podcast. I'm going to kind of generally lay that groundwork that I've talked about in the past for those first time listening, and then we'll kind of get into the application of it with this particular story. With that said, I believe that there is a God in heaven above that made us and designed us, but we sinned and fell, and thus we live in a fallen world. One of the results of that is things that were designed in a good way, arguing sex and gender and many, many other things, are perverted and broken by sin. And we see that in things such as this, in a similar way that you have people that are attracted to the same gender or trying to think that there is more genders than the one they actually are. With that idea that God created mankind male and female, that if you believe that to be true, and I would argue vehemently for it, anything outside that intended design, the design that God created men and women for, and the roles that he gave for them, will only cause harm and destruction and problems for those that try to go outside of that norm. So when we make our laws and our regulations and things, they should be laws that encourage people to live healthy, godly lives, and lives where they'll be happy, that they will flourish, right? That there will be human flourishing, that society would grow and be strong, and that's how our laws should be written. When you're writing laws that sit there and say, hey, yes, we're going to affirm the position that there is more than two genders, which if we believe there's not more than two genders, then trying to go outside of that is going to hurt people rather than affirming, saying, no, you need help. We love you. That is a loving thing to say to that person, to be like, you're confused, and that's understandable. We live in a world, it's confusing. There's a lot of difficult things to understand, and the world is a scary, scary place. So let's help you. Let's, as a society, say, we're going to help you here and teach you what is the intended goal. Let's help you work through these illusions and different things that you've conjured up your life accordingly. Then the second part I would add on this story is that if we believe there's two genders and we're adding these people or allowing them to go, men into women's and women's into men, but more specifically, men into women's that, like say, I've transitioned or whatever else. No, you haven't, because there's only two genders. And so that's a man going into a women's sport. You are going to be vastly better at that sport, and you're going to take away different scholarships, different things that should have been for the women, not for you, but for the women in that sport. And so I think this is a perfectly just and good law that we tried to pass here in the state of Idaho, and our local legislators saying, hey, we, the people of Idaho, through the power of our representatives, do not want transgenders competing in women's sports or having these people that want to think of themselves as different gender trying to compete in all these different roles. We don't want that, and we're passing a law to block that. And I think the local society within that local jurisdiction here in the state of Idaho, we have all right to do so. And it's not discriminatory because there isn't more than two genders. There's only two. And affirming otherwise is a problem. I will also admit, this is a little bit of a rant. It does frustrate me, and maybe you've seen it in a little bit of the way that I've written the script here, and covering kind of on last week, how often that you have the will of the people, right? That we elect representatives that support our ideals, be it, in the logical, most understandable basic precept that there are men and women and that's it. And then they vote for laws and write laws that affirm that, just as we voted them in there to do. And then the courts say, yeah, the will of the people is wrong, and so we're going to stop it. I mean, I understand that to a certain extent you need the courts to kind of counteract and act as a balancing act, and like anything in our blessed government that we have been blessed with and the Lord has given us, there's counterbalances to try to have checks and balances where, say, you have an out-of-line legislature trying to do stuff, and then you need the court to wheel it in and keep it accountable. And, frustrations of politics, shall we say, that you want your will to be exercised and the other guys trying to have their will exercised, and the conflict that then occurs from that free market of ideas. But that in the coming weeks and months and stuff, as we're getting closer to different elections and things, I really do hope to have more resources available for you guys to know, how did this judge vote? How did they do this? How did they do that? So that you can actually vote accordingly, because we're seeing how much of an effect that judges have on our legal system, where I would say in America you're seeing more people, and it's a good thing, and this podcast is a result of that, of people saying, hey, we need to be involved in our local politics, we need to be involved in our local communities so that the laws that are written are the laws that we want, and that's good, and we're seeing that exercised through our legislature here in Idaho, and we're seeing that in many, many other ways. But I think we've forgotten about the court, and that we're seeing the results of that, where it's causing issues and struggles, where the courts have been filled by a lot of different higher class, college professor type of people that really don't represent God-given ideals. The colleges have lost that a long, long time ago. And thus, we need to give a certain extra amount of attention to that. In any case, it'll be really interesting to see how this goes. I'm really hoping that this gets overturned, especially with these two different ones that are progressing here. It's sad to see that both of these, as we're going into another school year, aren't being able to be enforced. Sad, in my opinion, because I believe that they have a place and are important and are valuable laws and valid laws and good laws, but it will be very interesting to see how they progress through the courts, and hopefully these rulings will get overturned in the coming weeks and months. Anywho, coming out of politics here and into something a little bit more lighthearted, we have Idaho Potato Day. This comes by the Boise Dev by Ann Daly. So there appears to be a new festival on its way in Meridian, one that I'm surprised didn't already exist. It is a festival celebrating Idaho's most famous crop, the potato. The festival will be called the Potato Days, and it is coming to Meridian on September 22nd and 23rd at Kleiner Memorial Park. The event is being organized by the Roots Family History, a local company that specializes in genealogy research. The festival will feature a variety of activities, including a French fry competition, live performances, carnival games, a vendor area, a bubble garden, and bouncy houses. There will also be a massive potato art installation featuring chalk art from over 60 local artists. Quote, "There would be no better subject for a festival in Idaho than potatoes," said Thomas Watson, founder and CEO of Roots Family History. Over time, Potato Days will become a tradition for Idaho families and something to look forward to each September, end quote. Spud Buddy, Potato from the Potato Drop, and the Big Idaho Potato Truck will also be at the weekend-long event. Admission is free for the event. Granted, food and other goods will be available to purchase from food trucks and vendors, which maybe this already existed, but this is the first I've heard of it. And from the way I was like reading the article, or whatever, this sounds like the first time they've done something like this. I really hope it turns out well, but I'm still just shocked that something like this didn't already exist. Maybe there was something over in Twin Falls or over near the potato fields. I think those are over in Twin Falls. I think it's over in eastern Idaho where most of the potatoes are grown and harvested. I assumed that there would be a festival over there. I didn't go and look and see if that was the case as well, but just shocking to me that we didn't already have something like that in the Boise / like Treasure Valley area, a festival like this. But hey, at least we've got it now. And it's coming. It looks like it'll be a super fun thing. Granted, I will admit it is a little interesting that it's being done by a genealogy research company or whatever that's trying to put it on. But hey, I'm not going to say no to supporting potatoes. Here in Idaho, we love them. I will admit one of my favorite things to kind of like joke about a little bit is that in Idaho, if you go onto like the national registry, or not national registry, for the state blue book, it says that the state vegetable is a potato. So if you're sitting there and the kids are saying, hey, we need to have a vegetable for dinner, they can argue, hey, potato's a vegetable in Idaho anyways. It makes me chuckle every time I say it because it's like, oh yeah, potatoes are a vegetable. No, they're not. Yeah, they're a vegetable. According to the state of Idaho, they are a vegetable. So if you're an Idahoan, you can eat those as your vegetable for dinner. Also on the flip side, and slightly related but not, I heard, we'll see if it ends up all panning out and stuff, but I heard this last session for the Oregon legislature, they named their state vegetable the potato as well. Which personally, I think that's fighting words. That's ours, and it's been ours for a long time, Oregon. Just because you've got this greater Idaho movement that's working over there, that you have a bunch of Oregon people that are trying to leave. Maybe this is a sign from them that they're ready and they want to join. I don't know. But that Oregon is trying to steal our vegetable from us and saying, no, yeah, we're potato growers too. No, Oregon. That is ours. We are the potato state. I mean, not to say that Oregon doesn't make potatoes. I mean, I went and looked out there and researched it. They do grow a decent amount of them. But we are the major producer here. Our state potato, I spoke wrong there. Our state vegetable is the potato. You need to leave that alone. And now we have a festival to prove it, that it is ours. Moving on to our next story here, and keeping with festivals, we have the Boise Lantern Festival. This comes by the Boise Deb by Gretchen Parsons. Another event I had no idea happened in Idaho. Last Saturday, there was the Water Lantern Festival in Boise. The festival is a traveling event that takes place in cities across the country. The event involves participants purchasing a lantern kit, which includes a floating lantern, LED candle, marker, and commemorative bag. Participants then write messages and decorate their lanterns and launch them into a body of water at a specific time. This year's festival came to Boise at the Julia Davis Park, but the event has been held in Boise since 2019 and has had no issues in the past. However, there have been concerns raised about the event's potential impact on the environment. In Bend, Oregon, where the festival was held for the first time last weekend, more than 80 lanterns and wooden platforms made their way down the Deschutes River, hopefully I'm getting that right, and sank to the bottom. A local group of volunteers retrieved the debris and shared the images on Instagram. The mayor over there in Bend, Melanie Kebler, said the event could be seen as, quote, recreational littering, end quote. The Boise Park and Recreation representative, Bonnie Shelton, says the city is aware of what happened in Bend and worked to ensure similar issues don't arise in Boise. She said that Boise's event would take place in a pond that does not connect to the Boise River, and that organizers are required to submit and follow a trash removal and cleanup plan. The Water Lantern Festival has responded to concerns by saying that they have been working with groups in Bend to retrieve the lanterns and are thankful for the input and advice. Which I've heard about these events. I've seen about them. I mean, there's so many different Asian, I think, shows or different things that I've seen this idea of like lanterns or different things. They do a lot more of that in those cultures. Maybe, I don't know. It's just kind of the connotation I've got in my head at the moment. I've never done anything particularly like this, but I will admit it was something the first time I heard one of these stories of these lantern festivals that came into mind is, okay, we're launching them down like a river or a body of water, but what happens after? Like, is there someone that's holding a net at the other end after the event to kind of capture them all and process them? Or are they all just kind of going to pile up somewhere? Or how does this all kind of work? I mean, it's a cool spectacle. I'm glad to hear that the Boise Parks and Recreation are kind of doing something to address that they're like, hey, you can have this, but we can't have it like in a moving body of water because then it's going to be hard to catch it. And I don't think they want to put a net downstream and all that and everything and the work and stuff. And I guess it's an interesting concern to raise. I know those that listen for any length of time know that I'm not a huge environmentalist. I mean, I like nature. I love to go hiking. I want to be beautiful. I don't want us to entirely pave the world in concrete and asphalt. I'm not that type of person who wants to cut and chop every tree down. I'm not that at all. But I also feel like our society lately has gone off the deep end on being way too reverent to the creation, shall we say, that God gave us this world. He gave us this creation. He calls us to have dominion over it and to be good stewards. Dominion meaning that we use it and we have rights over it and we utilize it, but also that we're good caregivers of it. So a nice, healthy balance. I'm glad that there's these concerns raised and it looks like they're addressing them. If someone went to this event, please shoot me an email. What'd you think of it? Was it any fun? Did you enjoy it? Was it your first time? If you've got any cool photos that you want, you can send them over. I'll go post them on the Twitter over there and stuff so people can see kind of what the event looked like. I saw a bunch of different ads kind of popping up on my radar for it and different things, but it looked like a cool event, and I'm glad the Boise Parks and Recreation did something to kind of be aware of it and keep a handle on it. Our next story here was a contender for our last one, which for any of you guys that listen for a length of time know is the one that I usually cover an interesting or fun fact type of thing. But with that said, I decided to put this one just before kind of to whet your palate, more of a funny story. With it said, Idaho Sharks. This comes by KTVB7 by staff. So a funny story and a little bit of a head scratcher. This last week, Idaho Fish and Game received multiple calls and emails about a shark that was washed up on the shore of the Salmon River near Resigns. It was found to actually be a shark, a salmon shark to be precise. The sharks grow up to about 10 feet long and up to 100 pounds and love to feed on salmon. However, Idaho Fish and Game says it is unlikely that the shark could have made its way into the Salmon River. Quote, no sharks have been observed swimming up any fish ladders, and the only known shark that can live in fresh water is the bull shark, Idaho Fish and Game said. They also stated that they believe the shark they found on the shore was most likely dropped by someone as a prank. Quote, I think it is safe to assume that somebody dropped this on the shore for a good laugh, Idaho Fish and Game said. I certainly laughed about it, and that would have been a great April Fool's joke, end quote. Which I saw the title, and I'll admit, clickbait, it got me to click and look at it, and now I'm talking about it, and so you're hearing about it, and so clickbait does its thing, right? I do know about the bull shark thing a little bit, only because maybe some of you guys listen to this. There was this series that I think it's the Discovery Channel did, called River Monsters with Jeremy Wade. I'm surprised I actually know all the terminology just off my head. And he would go around all over the world to try to catch different dangerous fish and stuff from certain stories. A lot of them were in the Amazon and different things. And in that, he would talk about different stuff where there's a lot of times where you'll see these sharks that they will swim inland into some of these areas. And depending on some of the sharks, some of them, there are freshwater sharks. Not all sharks are saltwater. And so they can come into land, into rivers and different things, and you'll see them. Usually they don't come super far in. I don't know why that is. I don't know enough about anatomy and biology if it has to do something with the body size or different things, but they just don't. Definitely a funny thing to hear from up north. It's kind of funny. The Fish and Game kind of ran with it. They're like, well, we haven't seen it in any of the fish ladders, and the only one's like a bull shark and whatever else. That made me chuckle a good bit when I was reading it. But definitely something interesting to have up north, and it probably caused a little bit of a stir up there near Resigns to have that news coming in. KTVB7 had kind of a little bit of a video there talking with it, and the spokesperson, you should listen to that if you want. It was really interesting to hear him. He was kind of chuckling about the experience that they had there and people calling in and different things and their reaction when they're like, wait, people are calling it about a shark. There's not supposed to be a shark. Is this a prank? It can't be a prank call. We've got this many calls coming in. It's just a whole funny thing to be sure. And another thing to add into the annals of funny things to have in history, including, beavers being parachuted out of planes, which if you're curious about that story, you should go watch a couple episodes back where I talked about that. That is very, very funny story as well. And lastly, we come to our last story, our fun and interesting one. And keeping with the wildlife theme, we have Idaho Wildlife Overpass underway. This comes by KTVB7 by Abby Davis. So there is an interesting project happening on State Highway 21 between Lucky Peak and Idaho City. There is an overpass being built to help reduce the number of wildlife vehicle collisions in the area. Scott Rudel, an environmental planner with the Idaho Transportation Department, says that the area is a hotspot for collisions. Quote, "We have a migrating herd of deer and elk that winter back and forth between their winter ranges and their summer ranges," Rudel said. "But when they are crossing, they create a mobility issue between the motorists who encounter them." End quote. ITD data shows that there have been nearly 7,000 wild animal-related crashes on Idaho's roads in the last 5 years, and about 40 of those happened along the stretch SH-21 above Roby Creek to Lucky Peak. Rudel says that the wildlife overpass will help to reduce those numbers. He pointed to an underpass that was built about a mile away from the overpass as an example. Quote, "Since installing the underpass, there has been no reported wildlife crashes and few carcasses have been found on the road." End quote. The overpass is expected to cost about $7 million. Most of the money is coming from the federal government, specifically from the Federal Lands Access Program. Jeff Abrams, Wildlife Program Associate with Idaho Conservation League, supports the overpass project. He says well-placed infrastructure can reduce wildlife collisions by 80 to 90%. Quote, "It's going to be a great thing for our state's wildlife and our economies," Abrams said. "Animals need to be able to move seasonally to find things like food, water, and essential habitat. So having a safe travel corridor for this is critical to their survival." End quote. Abrams believes the project will garner support since coming across animals while driving is part of living in the Northwest. Quote, "We've all experienced either having a wildlife vehicle collision ourselves or the aftermath of that by seeing carcasses littered across the highway, and that resonates with people." End quote. He said that ITD should build more overpasses around the state. Abrams encouraged people to reach out to the department if they see any problem areas. With that said, ITD will be monitoring how big of an impact the State Highway 21 overpass makes on animal-related crashes. If they see a big difference, Rudel said the project will likely open the doors to adding additional overpasses. Which, when I first saw the heading for this and the title over there on KTVB7, their article or whatever else, I was like, what? We're doing what now? Are we making like this little corridor or whatever they can walk over and it's going to have railings and everything? And I was thinking of like a human type of overpass or whatever. And I was, what? Is this how far we've gone that we love our animals this much? We're making them like custom walkways. But then the more I read the article, the more I was like, that kind of makes a lot of sense. If you've got, say, a river at the bottom of a canyon or something, and the animals, they're going to be higher up in the mountains, but then they would need to come down for water and stuff. And they don't know when to a certain extent they do, but if it's a really busy road, eventually they're going to get hungry enough or need it enough, and they're going to try to run for it. And then a car is going to slam into them and hit them. And it's not good. Rather than like they've shown here, they had an underpass they built kind of as an example thing. And then they saw all the wrecks go down because all the animals learned, wait, I can just go there. I don't have to worry about the cars. I'm not going to get hit. And then everyone's happy. So as much as my initial gut reaction was that this is just a bunch of environmental pandering again, I think this is a great idea. Now, to kind of paint you a picture, and they didn't talk about it a ton in the article, but like looking at the video and the footage from KTVB7, the overpass, when they say that, it's not like they're building like a concrete one that we would think of, an overpass over a freeway or something. They're building kind of this like concrete dome that goes over the road, almost like they're building an artificial tunnel where the road goes through, and then it looks like they're just going to fill over the top with dirt and different stuff. And so you'll just be making this, artificial tunnel that then the cars can go through, and then the wildlife can just move over the top of it. I don't quite understand the reasoning of why you would do an overpass related to an underpass. I feel like an underpass would be easier to build, but maybe they're building one of each type to see the pros and cons, because it sounds like this is kind of a first of its kind project. I'm hoping it works out, because if it works out well, then you might see these a bunch show up in different areas of the state and more rural areas of Idaho. You'll see more like underpasses so that wildlife can kind of move through those so we have less wrecks in the state. Because if we can eliminate or really heavily decrease the amount of vehicle collisions with animals in the state of Idaho, I think you'd see a lot of deaths go away, because I've heard of so many different wrecks and things and people and damages, and it just causes problems, period. And if just adding periodically along the road that it goes through a tunnel or there's an underpass for the animals to move through that stops that issue, I think that's a worthy investment because it will save a ton of lives and will make our roads here in Idaho a lot safer. So very cool to see. I guess if you guys have some time, you can drive up there and kind of drive through it as they're working on it and different things I was looking like from the footage. So if any of you guys go, let me know what you think of it. If I can find some time, I'll go up there, maybe shoot some footage or talk to some guys. I'm trying to get all the camera gear together to do more of those interview type things and make some videos on the go for the YouTube channel. Bear with me on that. But in any case, that wraps us up for our main stories. Now, moving into the Quickies. These are stories that weren't worth full commentary and being a main story, but I still thought you guys needed to know about. First one here is Boise vegan restaurant closes. This comes by the Boise Deb by Gretchen Parsons. A win for those that love meat and are looking for more coffee. An all-vegan restaurant in downtown Boise closed. The Alchemist Plant Pub opened in mid-March but is now closed permanently. The pub cited challenges in the economy, such as rising food costs and labor expenses, as the reason for the closure. Plus, I will add possibly the possibility of people not needing a vegan restaurant. However, the space will soon reopen as another Alchemist coffee location. This is because the pub's owner is Chris Price, who also owns the Alchemist Coffee Cafes, which have 5 other locations in Boise and Eagle. Quote, "We will be transitioning this location into another Alchemist Coffee location in the near future. We appreciate your understanding and patience during this transitionary period. Your support means a lot, and we're truly grateful," end quote. For those wondering what they did offer, the Alchemist Plant Pub offered a variety of vegan dishes, including mushroom jackfruit sandwiches, black bean burgers, and other vegan offerings. Now, as for when the space will reopen as a coffee spot, Alchemist says it will provide updates on social media as they get closer to it. Next is Boise development attorney dies in Hawaii. This comes by the Boise Deb by Gretchen Parsons. Loosely related to the wildfires over in Hawaii, but very sad to hear as well. Joanne Butler, a prominent Boise real estate attorney, died on Friday in an apparent drowning in Hawaii. She was 72. Butler was found unresponsive on a beach in South Kohala on the Big Island, according to local reports. She was pronounced dead later that evening. Butler was a partner at the Butler Spink LLP, where she specialized in real estate, land use, and commercial law. She had been practicing law for over 30 years and was a well-respected member of the Boise legal community. Butler was involved in many significant local development projects, including the Harris Ranch development and the St. Luke's downtown expansion. She also was a mentor to many young lawyers and was known for her commitment to advancing women in legal professions. The news of Butler's death has been met with sadness and a shock in the Boise community. She was respected and a well-liked figure. Her loss will be felt by many. Next is Idaho Wildfire update. This comes by several sources. We skipped it last week, but here is this week's update for Idaho. As usual, this isn't covering all the fires that are happening in it right now, but these are the ones that I ran across, and to just kind of give you guys a general overview. First off, we have 3 fires to talk about. The first is the Ridge Creek fire, which is burning in the Payette National Forest in steep terrain. It's making it difficult for firefighters to access. The fire is currently 3,200 acres and is 12% contained as of last Thursday afternoon. The cause of the fire is under investigation. A total of 459 personnel are currently assigned to the fire, with 15 engines and 10 pieces of heavy equipment. The second is the East Fire, which is burning on the Salmon River Canyon. The fire is currently 2,750 acres, but the article doesn't say what percentage of it is contained or not. The cause of the fire is also under investigation. A total of 117 people are responding and assigned to the fire as of last Friday. They also have 2 helicopters, 5 fire engines, and 2 water scoop airplanes helping them with that one. And then the third and lastly is the largest one, and the one we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. There is the Elkhorn Fire, which is burning in the Salmon River corridor, threatening the nearby town of Resigns. Some of the residents have been evacuated. The fire is currently 26,048 acres and is 45% contained. The fire is believed to have been started by lightning. There are a total of 229 personnel fighting the fire, but they don't don't say what equipment has been brought to bear on that one. As mentioned, all 3 fires are posing a threat to homes and properties. Residents in the area are urged to be prepared to evacuate. For more information on any of these fires, please visit the website of the Idaho Department of Lands and the U.S. Forest Service. Next is a little bit of a political one. Attorney General Labrador resigns from Central District Health Board. This comes by KTVB7 by Morgan Romero. So some strange news happening with the Attorney General. Idaho Attorney General Labrador, hopefully I'm getting that right, resigned last week from the Central District Health CDH Board. Labrador submitted his letter of resignation on Wednesday, effective Friday, August 18th. He served on the board since 2021 when he was appointed by 2 of the 3 Ada County commissioners. In his resignation letter, Labrador said he was proud of the, quote, efforts and success we have achieved in balancing the public health, safety, and personal liberties of our fellow citizens, end quote. He did not specify why he was resigning. With that said, Labrador's appointment to the board was controversial, as it came during the heat of the pandemic when public health mandates became a point of contention. According to the article, his appointment was viewed as a political one because the seat is usually filled by a county commissioner. All that to say, the county commissioner says that they will fill Labrador's seat as soon as possible. The goal is to do so by October 20th. They're looking for someone who, quote, knows and understands the budgets, who understands the role and missions of the Central District Health, and who knows how to be a board member for an organization, end quote. Moving into something a little bit cool and more laid back, we have the Caldwell pool coming back. This comes by KTVB7 by staff. A heads up for those of us in Caldwell. You may or may not know, but the Caldwell pool has been closed since 2021 due to an electrical problem and a leak. The city has budgeted money to fix the pool, but the construction costs ended up being too high. However, in July, the city began accepting bids for the restoration of the pool. A bid from Benetton Construction was accepted by the council on August 15th. The project will begin with repairing the current pool and building a new mechanical room in the fall. The goal is to reopen the pool in 2024. The hope is the restoration of the Caldwell pool will provide a much-needed recreational space for the community. Next, and coming back around to fire-related things, Fire Halts Lucky Friday Mine. This comes by the Shoshone News Press by Josh McDonald. So some news from up north in Mulan, Idaho. Sadly, some pretty scary news. Last Sunday, a fire broke out at the Lucky Friday Mine, which, for those of you that don't know, is an underground silver, lead, and zinc mine in Mulan. The fire was first noticed by smoke emanating from the mine's number 2 shaft. No one was underground at the time, so no emergency evacuations were required. The cause of the fire is still unknown, but authorities are working with the Mine Safety and Health Administration, or MSHA, to investigate. MSHA is a federal agency that regulates the safety of underground mines. With that said, there has been reports from social media of a noxious layer of smoke blanketing the town of Mulan and the surrounding area. The smoke is believed to be coming from the fire at the Lucky Friday Mine. Authorities are warning locals to stay inside if they're concerned about the smoke. Hecla Mining Company, which operates the Lucky Friday Mine, says that no miner or mine staff was ever in any danger. The company is working with the MSHA to investigate the fire and determine when it will be safe to resume operations at the mine. For context, the Lucky Friday Mine is one of the largest silver mines in the United States and employs about 700 people. And ending on a light/good note, we have new Wendy's in Rexburg. This comes from the East Idaho News by staff. So it looks like you guys over there in Rexburg will be getting a new Wendy's. The new location opened at 240 East Moody Road in Rexburg on Thursday. The restaurant was designed to have a lower impact on the environment with open, bright dining areas and multiple seating options. It also offers contactless pickup and curbside options. Robert Pincock, one of the franchisee's co-owners, said, quote, "We believe our fans will be delighted by our breakfast menu, by the fresh look and feel, and the contactless pickup and curbside options we offer when they dine with their family and friends." Todd Ricks, the other franchise co-owner, said, quote, "Our ultimate goal is for our customers to have an easy, fast, and tailored dining experience while enjoying the fresh-made, craveable Wendy's foods they love. We think they will find that at this new Wendy's," end quote. Thank you for listening to the entire podcast. I sincerely hope you found it enjoyable and valuable. If I missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please feel free to reach out to me via email at localyokelidaho2022@gmail.com or on Twitter by tweeting me at localyokelidaho. As a one-man show, I'm not able to cover everything, but I do my best to cover the most interesting and important stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Godspeed.